All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour. We're so grateful for Third Wednesdays. And so welcome everyone to the April GLR Midday Cafe. We've got some people still hopping on here. And so we're grateful for you being here. Want to let you know that if this is your first time and you want to catch some past replays of the Great Lakes Region Cafe calls, we've had some excellent content, but we do have a YouTube channel. And so I'll be putting that link over in your chat bar. And so you can check that out and follow the YouTube channel and you catch up on some of the content. But we're pretty excited in the Great Lakes region about, I don't know if you've heard, but there's a new book in the Enneagram world. And so I'm going to be Vanna and actually throw this one out. But we're pretty excited for Spiritual Rhythms of the Enneagram. And it is in the third printing. And it's only a month old. And so we are ecstatic for Scott and Clare Lowridge and Doug and Adele Calhoun. And so I'll also put a link over there in the chat for that. If you do not have the book, it's phenomenal and is a great piece of work for you as personal work or as in a helping profession. You want this book in your resource library. And so it's excellent. But a couple of things we have going on in the Great Lakes region as far as events. And so both of these are actually in Marshall, Michigan, historic Marshall, Michigan. There's a day retreat coming up on May the 4th. And so we'll put a link in there too for a retreat called Silence and Solitude and Your Enneagram Type. And then also Claire's got a certification and training if you're interested in actually being certified to teach the Enneagram coming up in Marshall again on June the 4th through the 7th. And so make sure you check out those links over in the sidebar. And if you'd like to be a part of that training, I know Claire would be happy to answer questions, but it's been transformational in my life. So we've got some other things we're going to share, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Claire. And then we will post out some more resources for you throughout the call today. So Clare Lowridge, our IEA GLR president.
Yeah, and so today we're really blessed to have Kathryn, Grant, and Dr. Jerry Wagner with us, who are master teachers. And you'll get to hear about the trainings they're offering coming up here. Some wonderful beginning trainings, advanced trainings, train the trainer trainings. I mean, these guys they're rocking it. And taking it all over the country too, from the West Coast to Chicagoland. And so we're so grateful to have the two of them. I think many of us have sat under their teaching, and it is like no other. I just got to tell Erica a little bit about Kathryn and the work that she's done with Homer's Odyssey, and what a joy that was. And then she's using all kinds of literature to teach the Enneagram, from Trolls to the Wizard of Oz, and ways for us to see our lives through the brilliance and the delight of literature. And then, of course, the patriarch, in the best sense of the word, Dr. Jerome Wagner in the Midwest has been such a gift to all of us here, and continues to be providing ways for us to grow in our Enneagram / psychological wisdom. And so both of them are together. What a dynamic duo. I mean, it is really just a gift to have the two of you together here. And so we just greet you and say, thanks for taking the time to be with the Great Lakes region here, and just shower us with a little bit of Enneagram love, and then also tell us how we can continue to grow through the work that you're doing through your trainings. And so I'm loving that all these people are hopping on, seeing such great friends of the Enneagram here. Thanks everybody for joining us, and love seeing you, and know the good work that you're doing with the Enneagram is going to benefit from the short amount of time we'll have with Kathryn and Jerry. So Kathryn, can we begin with you, and maybe have a morning story from the Enneagram, a way to experience the Enneagram in literature through this brilliant and imaginative 7 on the Enneagram.
Yes. Well, it's like morning story time. Sure, we can do something. I've started telling stories a long time ago when I was trying to illustrate human dilemma, the things that we all experience. And I found that they show up all the time in fairy tales and myths and stories throughout the ages. And my kind of latest addition to my story repertoire is the Three Billy Goats Gruff. And it kind of exciting when you're in person because I can growl and, run around and butt people off the bridge and stuff.
We'll let you do that.
Why don't I do that? Right? I just butt my laptop across the room. But I use it to illustrate the lines of connection. I think there are parts of the Enneagram that have evolved into different kinds of usages. And I think the lines of connection are one of those. That it's not necessarily just I go here, I go there, I'm stressed, I'm relaxing, that all of those potentials and possibilities at the end of those lines are available to us all the time. And what we often do is throw a troll up in front of ourselves and don't allow ourselves to really walk across that line of connection. And I started this story when my granddaughter was about 4, and I'd read stories and we'd play and we'd do things, and we were reading the Three Billy Goats Gruff, and so she said, yeah, she didn't have any L's or R's. She'd kill me if she knew I was doing this, but she's so she would say, well, let's pay it. Let's pay. Okay. So she got up on my couch, and I crouched down on a little table in front of the couch. And she'd tiptoe up there, going across the couch like a bridge. And I would roar up and, what are you doing on top of my bridge? And she would come up with these elaborate stories. And this went on for weeks. So the story kept getting more details. But it was basically, I'm too little. You don't want to eat me. I've got a bigger, heavier, fatter brother. Wait and eat him, but don't eat me. I'm too little. So then she jumped off the couch. She ran around the living room, came back again, I roared up, what are you doing on top of my bridge? And she said, oh, you don't want to eat me. I all muscle ye. I go to the gym. I ride a Harley. Are you ready for that? 4 years old. Together. Don't eat me. I have a big, fat, juicy brother. He coming next. So she jumped off the couch, ran around the living room, got back up on the couch, and I roared up, what are you doing on top of my bridge? And she headbutted me across the room. So seriously, I landed on the floor. She came over, let's play again. And we played it for weeks. And it changed every time. And what her goal was and her story was that she was crossing this bridge. And then one day, it was the little one that was up there. And she said, you want to be my friend, Mr. Toll? So I climbed up on the couch. Sure, I want to be your friend. And she drew me a map, marked it with some big circles or X's or whatever, and said, you go here, map to my house. My mama will give you some meat. And we never played again. And I started thinking about that dynamic where we start to access something other than our normal behavior patterns. And then this troll jumps up and says, oh no, you're not smart enough to do that. You're not talented enough. You go back over there where you belong. You can't cross this bridge and access these other potentials. And so we were throwing up obstacles in front of ourselves instead of putting ourselves off the bridge and continuing and accessing all of those potentials that live on the other sides of the Enneagram. So that's kind of how I started using that story. And I've had people come up years later, I just butted a troll off my bridge, and now I'm really accessing this other stuff. Well, I think it's a good story. And I invite you to use those kinds of things. And we do talk about stories in the trainings. You get to see much more of my acting ability. but to give you some clues of other ways that you can help your students, help your coachees or your directees understand the Enneagram in a little deeper way because they have a story around it. So that's part of what you learn when you come to the training.
That's beautiful. And Morley just said, beautiful story with a smiley face. And I'm wondering, Kathryn, how do you take us around just really briefly the 9 styles with that troll?
Oh, I don't. I make people do that on their own.
Oh.
After the story and we talk about the lines of connection, then I invite people to draw their own bridges, and I have these trolls that I've cut out, and you get to pick what kind of troll you want. Is it kind of a dopey troll? Is your big threatening troll? And you actually construct a picture of how that works for you. And then we share it. It may take, a couple of sessions to do that. Yeah, no, I don't answer all the questions. I ask them.
Yeah. Can anybody identify their troll? And would you like to ask Kathryn a question about your particular troll?
Hello?
It could happen. Give them a minute. They're thinking about it.
Oh, okay. I thought somebody came on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What was the question? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I just said, can you identify a troll? And would you like to, ask Kathryn a question about it?
A troll?
Mm-hmm. From your own story?
When you say troll, are you referring to a demon that keeps revisiting? That type of thing? I don't know what you mean by troll.
Well, it's a part of yourself that gets in the way. It's an old habit, it's an old pattern that we've probably pushed outside of ourselves when we consider it, but it's really ours. And so when we're making a transition to a different place, to a different set of circumstances or potentials, we often find that little troll jumps up on top of the bridge and says, oh, no, you don't. Oh, no. You over there. So it can be different things for different people. This is all-purpose troll.
All-purpose troll? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me, envy has taken on a form of procrastination. How it works for a 4. It's, always feeling like you never amount up to anything. So you always put other things in the way of pursuing your dream or your goals. So you put other things in the way. Being I think 4s are doers, and we occupy ourselves with things, peripheral interests, and don't attack the one, focusing on the one interest. And at least that's how it's worked for me. I've done a lot of songwriting, and I've never even recorded one of the songs. So, and it's like, why?
So now, Jeff, that you've identified that troll, or at least started to isolate that troll for yourself, how can you befriend it? How can you say, okay, the procrastination or my envy or whatever, how can I use that energy? How can I bring it over here and be friends with it so we can both be more successful? My troll and I.
Well, I don't necessarily hold any grudges with my troll. So I sometimes the troll, there's a lot of things that I'm involved in that, it's there's a lot of things that I'm involved in that justify me doing those other things, other than the one thing I really have an intense passion for. So, I work on a farm. My wife and I we do horses, and there's an endless it's an endless siege of things to do, so that it's a good excuse to get it. I feel good about that. So I don't really, as far as befriending my troll, I don't necessarily begrudge my troll. I've never even looked at it that way, frankly. I just always see my dream as something hanging out there, you know, something that's always, it's unobtainable kind of thing. And, but it's there and I play with it. My wife has a nickname for it. She says, you go in the bedroom and you music bait, you know. It's like, I play with it so much and I never get down to getting it out there. You know, I'm always intimidated by it, you know, not being good enough.
I appreciate you sharing all that, Jeff. It's a common kind of situation we get ourselves into. So, Claire, I don't know, do you want to take another? Jeff, why don't you do some maybe journaling or something about this and see how you can resolve some of those issues for yourself? You sound like such a creative person. It would be great to hum some of your tunes.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Sure.
Yeah, so I just wonder, Jerry, you've worked a lot with hearing Kathryn talk about trolls, and is there a way that you can help us see our trolls? Or would you, you know, I think many times just a new language helps us unpack things in ways that we haven't thought about before, you know, just like Jeff in this moment. So I've never thought about a troll. So tell us if there's a way we can identify this troll that might open up some more conversation.
I think my troll is invisible, so it's hard to see my troll because that's the way I survive, by, you know, disappearing. Also, as Kathryn was talking, we do this exercise on polarity. So I am and I am not. So you would make a list of characteristics that would describe who you are. If you were going to go, you know, on Match.com, here's why you'd want to go out with me, or here's on your LinkedIn, you know, here's why you'd want to hire me. So here are all these qualities I am. And then if I'm that, then I'm not this. So it's the polarity. And oftentimes what I am not, I think that keeps us from going across the bridge. So for example, I'm a 5, I would go to the 8, but the troll on my bridge is pretty scary. You know, he's yelling and screaming and shaking his fist and oh, okay, I don't want to go there. I don't want to be like you. As opposed to if I saw an 8 that was firm and respectful and able to challenge in a compassionate way, oh, okay, that troll's got something to offer me. So I think we kind of, wherever we're supposed to go to get a little balance, oftentimes that's the very thing that we say, well, I'm not that. So if you're a 7 and you would go to a 5, you would say, well, God, I'm not that boring. God forbid. So maybe the 7's troll would be like a boring troll, you know. Although Kathryn has never accused me of that, but she might be harboring that thought. So when this conference is over, I will check that out with her and see. Yeah.
I don't harbor bad thoughts ever.
Oh, no. Good.
Yeah.
So, you know, you might imagine, think about where you go in the direction of your arrows. And do you have kind of a, are you given that type of bad reputation? Like a 1 would go to the 7, so they're going to see the 7 as being, you know, kind of frivolous and goofing around and you know, just having fun and not really suffering enough. So they would not want to go over that way. So you might want to think about how do you give bad press to or misrepresent the type where it kind of going against the arrow. Mm-hmm. So you can think about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. When I think about my troll, Kathryn, you know, it's shown up differently in different times of my life. But one troll that comes back all the time is I don't want to be lazy. And so and the invitation to be lazy has been really helpful for me because of the overworking workaholism of my 3. And so the little 9 that invites me to put my feet up and not have to pretend that I'm working, that actually I can celebrate the fact that rest is a virtue and not a vice, which I really felt like for the first 40 years of my life. So that troll, when you invite people to befriend their troll, are there ways that you encourage us to do that? Is there do you give us any tips that help us befriend this very not like me part of myself?
Let me think. Do I give you tips? Number 1, relax. You don't have to work real hard at this. You need to relax into it and understand that you've put those parts of yourself on the other end of the bridge. So reacquaint yourself, bring the sides together. It's the I am and I am not are 2 halves of how we are. And to bring those back together actually makes us a more well-rounded person. So that poor 1 who's trying so hard not to be 7 is faced with the 7 who's trying so hard not to be the 1. And actually putting those 2 dynamics together creates so much more health and so much more abilities to accomplish things and live a bigger, happier life. So it's always kind of this, take a breath, take a relaxation, and then see how those pieces can come together. Be my tip today.
Yeah, and I think about the work that you're doing in the training also around relationships and helping us. I think you want to know if everybody could put their type in the chat bar, just let us know who's in the room. That would be great. Because I think, connecting these 2 things, some of us have an easier time embracing trolls than others. There are people who think trolls are cute, and there are other people who think trolls are hideous or I'm not playing that game. They have a real resistance in that way. And so I wonder even if there are people in our lives that actually represent our troll and make it difficult for us to embrace because that there's a memory connected to a particular troll that makes it even more difficult to embrace. So Jerry, would you talk to us about the work with relationships you do and if it has anything to do with these trolls? And how trolls
it has nothing to do with that, so I'm going to make something up here.
Okay.
I apologize for leaving early. I'm having my chimney replaced, and they were going to come at 1 o'clock today. Of course, they showed up at 11. So, but they're happily busy out there.
Can you see the chat bar, Jerry? Because we have.
I saw people's names come up and what types they are, but now that's not around. But that's okay.
You've got 7s and 2s and 6s, 9s, 1s, 3s, and a 4. So I think you've got the whole crew.
A full circle. Excellent.
Circle.
All right. Well, let me talk about relationships. This is a new article I wrote. I'm going to give this presentation at the IEA out in Oakland. And I'm also going to try it out in Hong Kong and Cape Town. But this is the first anybody has heard of this because the Midwest is where it's at. And now, of course, my telephone is ringing. So let me tell you my latest thought, which is an old thought, and that is that our very strategy, which is trying to keep us safe, it brings about the very thing we're trying to avoid. So that's the irony part of it. So I would like to ask each of you to think about this, and then I'll because you've been very good, I'll read you something. But how does your strategy, which involves okay.
It's only befitting that that happens to a 5, that your privacy is violated. We all hear the message.
I'm waiting for either the FBI or the fire department to arrive next. So just stay tuned. How do you invite intrusions as a 5? Well, you have a phone that you don't mute. Okay. Where the hell was I? All right. How does your strategy bring about the very thing you're trying to avoid? So when you were little, this is the thing we do in the training. What were some vulnerabilities? Where were you hurt and you decided, I'm not going to let that happen to me anymore? So you develop this strategy, your Enneagram style, to make sure that doesn't happen. And yet the very style brings about what you're trying to avoid. So we tend to look for certain things, and if we don't see them, then we just make them up. And then our behavior kind of brings about the very thing that we're afraid of. So Kathryn tells stories. I'm a 5. I read books. So I'm going to read this to you, and then we'll talk about it. So this is from a man by the name of Paul Wagner, who's kind of an integrative theorist. He's a psychoanalyst, he's a behaviorist, he's a cognitive theorist, he's a relational theorist. He does everything. He's got a book called Therapeutic Communication, from which I now quote. So he says, our defenses protect us from anxiety in the immediate moment. But increasingly, they become a way of perpetuating the very state of vulnerability they were designed to quell. Or as family therapists sometimes put it, the solution becomes the problem. The chief characteristic of the circular patterns, the repetitive patterns with other people, described by cyclical psychodynamic theory, which is a fancy name, the characteristic is irony. With surprising regularity, the situation that the patient ends up in is precisely the one he's trying to avoid. In many instances, he does not aim for the consequences he encounters. He produces them despite and yet because of his vigorous efforts to prevent them. The cyclical psychodynamic account of how we repeat problematic patterns does not...
How we repeat these patterns.
I'm on a conference call. Don't call me anymore. Okay. Now, that was a very nice 8 response. Other words came to mind, but, I might need this person down the road. A deep breath. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this account of how we repeat problematic patterns does not typically posit an intention to reproduce the offending situation. The intention, rather, is quite the opposite, to prevent the repetition. The irony in what ensues lies in how, by the very act of carrying out that intention, the patient, us, contributes to the outcome he's trying to avoid. So here's an interesting piece now. People live in contexts. And our behavior, both adaptive and maladaptive, is always in relation to someone or something. Understanding how people change requires understanding that in an odd way, a neurosis is a joint activity, a cooperative venture of a most peculiar sort. If one looks closely at the neurotic patterns in which the patient is entangled, one invariably finds that the maintenance of those patterns proceeds with the assistance of other people. To keep a neurosis going, one needs help. Every neurosis requires accomplices. Indeed, it is only when one understands how others are drawn into the pattern as accomplices, how they are induced to interact in ways that confirm neurotic expectations and perceptions, that one appreciates fully both the depth of the patient's dilemma and what is required to bring about change. One last paragraph. The people who play the role of accomplice in our lives are not necessarily malicious. Most often, they are not even aware that they are playing such a role, but their participation is crucial. Focus in the therapeutic work on how patients induce others to play a complementary role in their neuroses is in many instances the key element in understanding how the patient's difficulties are perpetuated. The process whereby others are continually recruited into a persisting maladaptive pattern is the neurosis. So that's it. So that's the relational aspect. So the neurosis is not in us, it's between us. Harry Stack Sullivan talks about that in his interpersonal relationship theory. So here's the question, and I need some help on this. Do you have a sense of how your strategy brings about the very thing you're trying to avoid? And this is trickier because I'm having trouble even with me. How do I solicit accomplices? It's done unconsciously, which means it's got to be kind of hard to make it conscious. But if you notice recurring patterns, recurring conflicts, recurring difficulties, you keep marrying an alcoholic time after time, you notice you're doing that. What's that all about? I had the rather tragic insight last night. It's more behavior than relationship, but as a 5, I feel out of it. My daughter has a wedding coming up, and the other day her aunt and uncle and other people were there, and I felt like I didn't belong. Hello, this is my family. How nuts are you? Or I realized that as a 5, I feel out of it, and one of the reasons why I'm out of it is because I never volunteer to be in it. So my behavior brings about my very, problem. As a therapist, it's easier to spot dynamics in clients. I have a client now who's hell-bent on getting me to abandon him, and I'm pretty sure he's a 4. And usually at the end of each therapy session, he would say something like, well, this isn't really helping that much, and I think I'm wasting your time, but I don't mean to hurt your feelings. And eventually I'll say, well, why don't we just stop? And then he'll say, oh, even my therapist abandoned me. But I'm not going to say that. I was going to say because it's a 5, I need the money, but that's not true. I don't need the money anymore. There's someone else I know who's a 1. Her spouse is a 3. She's very critical of him, and he goes to the store and he forgets things. And then she says, well, you're wasting time doing this. And as a 3, now she's accusing him of being inefficient. So that cues him off. So now you have the shootout at the OK Corral. The one is, he comes back and says, well, you're wrong. And she says, no, you're wrong. So the fight continues. So how do you, in an unconscious way, get people to play their role in your drama? The unconscious is really brilliant. And our unconscious is equally brilliant because we join in. So, just real quick, there's an article about this on my website, Enneagram Spectrum, called The Enneagram and Cyclical Psychodynamics. I know you're all going to want to run off and read that, but wait till this session is over. I saw that response, Ruthie. Now, don't go away. Remember, I can see you. So, as a perfectionist, so you want to avoid being criticized because you want to be right, So how do you get people to criticize you? As a 2, you want to be liked and you want to be needed. So how do you go about getting people to reject you? Because that's the very thing you fear. So maybe smothering them is a way to push you away. It's a 3. You want to be admired. You want to be successful. How does your very success lead people to go away from you? Like maybe we figure, well, you don't need anything from us. As a 4, you're afraid of being abandoned. So how do you bring that about? Come here, go away, come here, go away. Eventually people will say, I feel like I'm interacting with an accordion here. I'll just stay away. And then, oh, okay, see, the world abandons me. I talked about a 5. I'm not going to talk about us anymore because it's none of your business. 6s, fearful, counter-fearful. So the world is a dangerous place. How do they look for betrayal? How might they bring it about? Counter-fearful 6s are going to be looking for, like an 8, looking for challenges. So how do they get people to challenge them? And then, then they have to fight back. Maybe your very doubts, turn people away. The problem with being paranoid, the old joke is that, if you think people are talking behind your back, they eventually start talking behind your back. Hey, she thinks people are talking behind her back. What do you think about that? 7s, oddly, being up brings them down. So it's hard to keep up with 7s. So maybe they solicit people who initially want to play and, go out to 8 bars a night, but eventually they wear out. And then the 7 says, oh, well, you're boring and kind of a party pooper like everybody else in my life. 8s want to be strong, and so they might be soliciting and seeing challenges and attacks where there aren't any, and 9s who want to be kind of in the background, want to be settled, bring about the very thing they're afraid of, like they get neglected. Oh, are you here? I didn't notice you there. Or it could bring about conflict. So, avoiding things, eventually it catches up to you and you got to deal with it. So avoidance only works for a while, but then it stops. Okay. Could I get some help here? I'll write down everything you say. So for my next article, does anybody recognize any of this in your own miserable lives? So how the very thing you're trying to avoid, you actually bring about by your strategy. That's the irony of it. Or have you had a sense of, I'm in these relationships that they all seem to remind me of a previous relationship I had. So you keep your play going. You might try it out in Indianapolis and then take it to Broadway. But what role do you get people to play, which ironically is the very role you don't want them to play?
Yeah, Jerry, this is Randy, and I'm a 6.
Uh-huh.
And I do recognize what you're saying.
Thank God.
Where I do create the opportunity for people to betray me.
Yeah.
If I can look back on very a long time ago, my first marriage, I married somebody who had trouble being loyal.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I think I felt like I could create an environment where it was safer, but it ended up being really a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So you probably wouldn't want to marry somebody who believes in open marriages.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying this next to my wife now.
Well, I realize you have to be careful about what you're saying here.
Okay, I did the same thing in my first marriage.
Uh-huh.
Can I just do a little comment on this?
Please.
Okay.
So, can you speak up a little bit, Ruthie?
Yeah, okay, I will project. So, when I saw the midday cafe thing, it was like saying that it was kind of geared to empathy. And, that's what it said. And so I arrived thinking, oh, we're going to look at empathy today. And in a way, I think that's what we are looking at. And so empathy is, that ability to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, or to go farther than that, to truly claim the I am not. Now, if I truly claim and embody the I am not, then I don't need somebody else to do that for me.
Right.
Right? It's just pretty simple. And as soon as I claim it, not only do they not have to do it for me, but I become more whole in myself, and I get less scared of that part of me.
Yes.
So as I might look at that, you know, like for a 2, you know, so something that a 2 looks at, you know, at least I can speak for myself, a big shadow is like selfishness, you know, being selfish. So we might not like that in somebody else, right, at all. We want to project that shadow onto them. But as soon as I can say I know that in myself, I am selfish. How am I selfish? What are the ways that I am that which I say I am not? And I think like that is a quick bridge to it. And I think like with Kathryn's story of her granddaughter was such a beautiful example of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I think that little girl came to was, well, at first I'm gonna put my poor fatter brother up on the block for me, you know, like I'm gonna avoid it, or you know, somebody else to do it. But where she finally got to, and what Kathryn's talking about, befriending, you know, she befriended the troll. So what she came to do was, what I felt was, oh, you know, why is this troll doing it? Because this troll is hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to say, how can I give that meat to the troll? And so in a way, like, you know, what am I hungry for too? Well, I'm really hungry to feel safe with this troll. I'm hungry to find a way to not be afraid of this troll and to care about this troll. And so I think that this whole idea of empathy that we kind of came in with is important, and the ability, like, yeah, the unconscious is working, but I do have a list of all those I am not. And if I can just start daily to claim it and to say, in fact, how is being selfish really a good darn thing for me? You know, or how is being lazy a good darn thing for me? You know, and how do I do it? Like, I say I don't do it, but I do it. Like when we talked about the belong, I didn't belong, you know? Well, you know, so then you're, okay, I don't belong. How is not belonging being okay for me? You know, how am I attached to that in a way? And can I just embrace that I don't belong? And then if I want out of it, then I can find a way out of it. And so anyway, I guess I'm saying that for me, empathy and being able to claim those things that we're using other people to hold for us is a way through the troll.
Mm-hmm.
Enough said.
So you're trying to understand the troll. What does the troll need, that other part of you, the I am not part, and what does that part the troll have to offer you? That's the empathic part, you know, and so then you can negotiate. Okay, you're hungry, I'll give you something to eat besides me, you know. There are a lot of different ways of satisfying that hunger. But let me ask you this, as a 2, let's say you're going across the bridge and you're trying to help the troll, but the troll is either an 8 or a 5, and that's about the last thing we need is your help. Now you're going to feel rejected by us. Have you ever had that experience, or are you smart enough not to do that with 5s and 8s?
Well, I mean, I think that, of course, I've had that experience. And so as soon as how I catch, like, my reaction, my aversion to it, like, I know now, you know, through enough of this shit, I know that I have to go, I am that. I am that 8 yelling at me. I know that in myself. Instead, I'm going to resist it or push against it.
Yeah.
I've got to know it in myself. And so what my key is, the aversion. Like, how do I bring that into consciousness or into the light is my reaction, my aversion. As soon as I have that, it's like, uh-oh, what am I not claiming? What am I not saying? Like that thing, oh, I would never do that. How could they do that? I would never do that. But of course, I would do that, and I could do that. So the I am not is delusional, really, in a way.
Or it's exaggerated, yeah. So it's like you need to ally with the troll rather than trying to convert it, make it more like you.
Yeah, and beyond ally, it like say it lives in me.
Say
That it lives in me.
yes, right. Yes, that's right. That's right. Thanks. That's nice. I'll quote you when I write up your comments.
Okay. Let's have a club sandwich.
All right.
Well, I appreciate this conversation, and I think if any of us are paying attention, we have solicited people to become a part of our drama, and we don't maybe think we've done that. We think, oh, this is just happening again. I don't know why this is happening again. And I love this idea of, I was thinking about social synapses, Jerry, when you were talking, that it's not about what's within us, but it's what is between us.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about good social synapses, and even empathy, which we didn't make the topic of the day once we knew we had Jerry and Kathryn here. Not that you don't have empathy, but a social synapse that is a healthy one that actually acknowledges the space between us, the energy between us, where we could ask a question, what's it like to be you? To the little lazy one or to the little selfish one, what's it like to be you? And rather than making it other than me, where I can demonize it, I can push it away, I can then start to ask questions that humanize even that part that feels like it's other than. So for me, rather than demonizing lazy or demonizing fear in the 6 or the 9, I can say, what's it like to be you? And that kind of social synapse. So I married my troll, my number 9, and so the two of us have that energy between us, where if we're asking the question about that space between us, it actually can connect us rather than polarize us.
Nice.
Yeah. For 38 years. So I'm thinking this is some great intro for your training, and we have all of the trainings and your website in the sidebar. But would either of you like to say something about what you're doing in the next couple of months that would incite us to want to come be with you?
Mm-hmm. Remember to mute my microphone. Okay, well, we're doing a basic. We're doing a couple of advanced. And the advanced training gives us an opportunity to go into some of these areas deeper and with more examples, with more actually excitement from the crowd. It'd be pretty wild. And also we're developing a train the trainer for people who want to teach what we're teaching. And that's a big piece for us.
Beautiful.
And we've got a basic and a advanced training here in Chicago. We've got a new spot, Northbrook. It's a nice venue. So I'm kind of excited to be there. And there are nice restaurants in the area. Things to entice people to come. Then the other advanced one is out in San Francisco, which is also a really nice little boutique hotel right by Fisherman's Wharf. And that's right before the IEA conference, which I'm sure you'll all be going to because it's the 25th anniversary of the IEA.
It's going to be an amazing conference. Yeah. And so we can get more information on EnneagramSpectrum.com. And I do want to say, even when you mention the restaurants, I think some of the conversations that happen around the table after, the training are they are equally as valuable. Well, maybe not equally, but
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, be careful. Yeah.
They are very valuable. And So I appreciate that that really is a part of what you consider the conference experience. And even the, you know, some practicum happening in those moments. We've got real, you know, real stuff happening around the tables. So
social synapses.
That's right. That is right. So thank you so much for coming. Thanks everybody for being here. And we bless you. And we hope that you will welcome in the I am nots of your life and discover what could be more for you. And so everyone, bless you. And we'll see you next month.
And you're welcome to come by to see my new chimney anytime you want. Just give me a month's advance warning.
Okay. Great.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.